They discovered the mysterious secret behind Jesus' miraculous feast for 5,000. Few knew what truly happened that night. As the sun sank behind the hills near the Sea of Galilee, shadows danced on the ground. It was just another evening, or so it seemed. The air buzzed with excitement and whispers. "He does miracles," murmurs floated through the crowd like a soft breeze. But there was a tension, a flicker of uncertainty. The people were hungry, not just for food, but for hope. They had followed him for miles, drawn by tales of healing and wisdom. As they looked into Jesus' eyes, they saw more than a man. They saw a promise. Yet the numbers didn't lie: 5,000 men, not counting women and children. The disciples were worried. Where would they find enough bread? Their hearts raced, questions echoing in their minds. And then came a moment that would shift everything. A boy, just a child, clutching 5 loaves and 2 fish. How could such a small offering feed so many? The crowd laughed in disbelief, each face twisted in doubt, yet curiosity held them. What would happen next? Jesus lifted his gaze, the weight of the world evident in his stance. Silence swept over the crowd. They were caught between skepticism and faith. The loaves glistened like gold under the fading sunlight. The fish sparkled, fresh and alive with flavor. Jesus prayed, a simple gesture that stirred something deep within. All eyes watched, breaths held. What was he thinking? What was happening in that moment of connection? Then, the impossible unfolded. The baskets began to fill. Each loaf multiplied and stacked higher. Each fish seemed to grow as if kissed by the divine. Gasps erupted. The crowd leaned closer, hungry eyes wide with astonishment. How could this be real? Laughter mixed with cries of joy. Fear vanished, replaced by a warmth that filled the air. Yet amidst the mirth, shadows lingered. Some whispered among themselves, skepticism creeping back like a dark cloud. How could such a miracle occur? Who was this man really? Legends were one thing, reality was another. Was it true? Or an elaborate trick? As everyone feasted joyously, devouring bread like it would never end, we need to ask ourselves, what are we truly witnessing? What secret lies behind miracles that defy explanation? Could faith be stronger than doubt? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the night deepened over the Sea of Galilee, a hush fell upon the multitude. The taste of bread lingered on their tongues, warmth radiated from their bellies, yet unease threaded quietly through the echoes of laughter. While most continued to revel in the miraculous, others lingered on the edges of the crowd, their hearts battling between gratitude and the unsettling discomfort of unanswered questions. Peter, one of the disciples, watched the festivities unfold. His eyes darted to Jesus, who seemed lost in thought, surveying the wondrous sight. There was awe in the gathering, but Peter felt an inexplicable heaviness in his own soul. What did all of this mean? Was this truly a sign, or merely an illusion crafted from hope's fragile fabric? Among those tapping their feet in joyous celebration were those who had been suffering, those seeking relief in faith, and those wrestling with their belief. They feasted, yet some remained hungry for answers, for clarity. The boy who had offered his food stood amidst them, a modest smile painted on his lips, yet his eyes reflected a knowing depth. The miracle had unfolded through his act of surrender, but what did he understand of the weight of that moment? As baskets overflowed, Jesus shared whispers with his closest companions, gesturing toward the crowd. Gather the leftovers, he instructed, so that nothing is wasted. The disciples moved quickly, collecting fragments from the ground, placing them in new baskets that swayed with the day's offering. With each loaf and fish retrieved, Peter's mind spiraled. Did the miracle rest solely in the abundance before them? Or could it pulse deeper, a calling to recognize the importance of unity, sharing, and purpose? As the baskets filled, a commotion arose in one corner of the gathering. A woman, her face painted with urgency, pushed through the throng. "We need to speak to him," she cried, her voice slicing through the merriment. The crowd turned, curiosity piqued. Who was she? And what was this pressing matter that seemed to supersede the waves of joy? Jesus, noticing the shift, stepped away from his disciples, illuminating the air between him and the woman with a gentle curiosity. "What brings you here, dear one?" he asked, his tone imbued with tenderness. With tears cascading down her cheeks, she spoke of a sick child, a suffering soul at home, longing for healing. Her voice trembled with desperation, yet her gaze was fixed on the hope that this man before her could provide. The crowd quieted, tension wrapping around the scene like storm clouds threatening rain. As Jesus delved deeper into her story, unveiling layers of pain and longing, Peter felt the sharp juxtaposition between need and fulfillment. Here they were, in the embrace of abundance, while others endured heartache. Could they truly revel in this miracle, knowing the suffering still lurked in the shadows of their lives? Resting his gaze back upon the baskets that brimmed over, Peter's heart questioned, could this feast signify more than mere nourishment? Was it an invitation to reflect on their own roles in a world that often felt filled with scarcity? When the woman returned, her face transformed, a fire igniting within her. "He will heal," was the chant that burst forth from her lips. Peter watched as the crowd responded in kind, their voices lifting in a symphony of renewed hope. Yet in the midst of this celebration, he felt a whisper tickle his consciousness, a call to discern the layers of faith, doubt, and earnest necessity still shrouded in the air. What was Jesus truly teaching them through this divine feast? Was it merely to witness the miracle or to unveil a greater truth about unity and compassion within community? As joy intermingled with longing, the question lingered heavy, waiting to be answered in the unfolding narrative of their journey. As the echoes of the crowd's celebration danced on the surface of the waters, a hush descended anew as Jesus turned away from the jubilant throng. With the noise of mirth fading into a memory, he gazed toward the distant hills where the sun was setting, casting a golden hue across the horizon. There was something in that fading light that called to him, a reminder of the divine rhythm that pulsed through every moment of life, the balance of joy and sorrow, abundance and need. His disciples remained near, their hearts still buoyed by the miracle, but weighed down by the complexity of the woman's plea. Peter, reflective and restless, couldn't shake the thought that surged within him, a notion that this miracle ran deeper than mere multiplication of bread and fish. What was the profound truth intertwined with this act of miraculous provision? "Master," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "what can we learn from this abundance? Many still struggle, even while we celebrate this gift." The words hung in the air, filled with the weight of his uncertainty. Jesus turned to Peter, his eyes penetrating, as if seeing straight into the depths of his soul. "Do you understand why this has been given?" he asked gently, a challenge wrapped in love. For every mouth filled, there are hearts thirsty. This crowd seeks more than bread. They seek belonging. They seek hope. The sparks of confusion ignited within the other disciples, a mix of awe and apprehension. James stepped forward, brow furrowing. "But how can we feed them all? There is only so much we can do." Jesus walked toward the edge of the gathering, beckoning for silence. There is no limit in the sharing of love. Behold the souls before you, it is their hearts we are meant to fill. His voice was calm, yet it echoed with authority, resounding within the very core of those gathered. As Jesus surveyed the multitude, others approached, their needs weighing heavily upon them, each one a thread in the fabric of their community. A blind man shuffled up, guided by a friend's hand, seeking light in the depths of darkness. A father bowed low, clutching a withered hand of his ailing son, pleading for hope. Each face told a story, each story revealing a common truth, the fragility of existence in the shadow of despair. Peter's heart ached as understanding broke upon him like a wave. Was this not the essence of the miracle, the blend of shared meals and shared burdens? In their joy, they must not forget the weight of sorrow that colored their world. Then how do we be part of this hope? Peter asked, the inquiry spilling forth from a heart yearning to grasp the magnificence of it, a desire not only for himself, but for each individual before him. With a hand extended to the crowd, Jesus continued, by living as one. It is not sufficient to fill our own bellies while others remain hungry in spirit. We must invite them into our feasts, our promises, and our lives. Something flickered within the crowd as they began to murmur among themselves, the significance of his words sinking in. It was as if, at that moment, the loaves and fishes transformed. They became symbols not merely of sustenance, but of community, sharing the bounty as a reflection of divine grace flowing through each of them. Suddenly, a boy stepped forward, his small frame bold against the swaying sea of adults. "I gave my bread and fish. I wanted to share." His voice broke through the ambience, conviction powerful in his simplicity. The crowd hushed again, the innocence of his offering cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. Jesus knelt to meet the boy's eyes, a smile warming his face. This child understands the kingdom of heaven. He turned to the crowd, the gravity of the moment hanging tantalizingly in the air. What seems small in our hands can ignite hope in others. It begins with us sharing what little we have, and trusting that the Father will multiply it in ways unseen. The crowd murmured deeper, thoughts intertwining like branches of a tree reaching toward the sun. Peter couldn't help but wonder how this lesson of sharing would resonate far beyond this moment. What could they uncover about love, unity, and purpose in a world often shrouded in shadows of individual struggle? And as the sun dipped below the horizon, he felt an unshakable sense that this lesson was but the beginning of something far greater, awaiting them all on their journey ahead. What would they learn from embracing the weight of community, vulnerability, and the desire for connection with each other? As Jesus rose from his encounter with the boy, the air felt heavy with significance. The golden sunset transformed into shades of purple and orange, painting the sky as if it were an artist's canvas, capturing the raw beauty of that fleeting moment. The crowd, now somewhat more united by the shared experience and understanding illuminated by Jesus' words, seemed to yearn for more than just physical sustenance. The quest for belonging had intertwined their lives into a fragile tapestry, bound by collective hope. "Peter," Jesus called, gesturing him closer, "and you too, James. Come, let us walk among them." The disciples drew nearer, their spirits ignited with purpose. Jesus began to navigate through the throng, those once merely identifiable by their needs now taking shape as brothers and sisters in a shared struggle. As they walked, the conversations around them morphed into gentle exchanges of encouragement and compassion. A woman held her infant tightly against her chest, whispering words of love, while a young girl sat beside her, dreaming with wide-eyed wonder about what the evening held. Their spirits buzzed, eager for the truth of belonging that Jesus had breathed into the air. "Master," murmured James, slightly hesitating, "is this the miracle? This moment where the heart unites, rather than just the eyes behold the food?" Jesus sent him a knowing glance. "The miracle sprouts from the soil of connection, my friend. It is transcendent neither solely in bread nor feast, but in the understanding that each soul carries weight and worth deserving of recognition." Peter's mind raced with the potential of what they had witnessed. Around him, the murmurs of disbelief, excitement, and contemplation rippled through the crowd. "But we have so many questions, Lord," he replied. "How do we carry this understanding into our places of solitude? How do we remain united after we leave this gathering?" Their walk led them near the edge of the shoreline, where the reflected moonlight danced like silver upon the waves. Jesus paused, turning to face the sea, his expression contemplative. "Unity is not merely in the gathering, Peter. It resides within our hearts wherever we may find ourselves. The challenge lies in recognizing the divine that binds us, even amidst distances and differences. When you feel lost, remember the hearts that beat in rhythm with your OWN. He spoke. A flame ignited within the gathered crowd, energized by the truth that washed over them like the waves lapping at the shore. Words exchanged among them began to brim with warmth, testimonies of struggle transformed into aspirations for tomorrow, as they shared stories of endurance against life's heavy tides. Then, a man approached Jesus, hesitating yet intent. "Teacher," he began with trembling lips, "how can one little voice make a difference? When I feel so small, when darkness encroaches, how can I believe I have the power to change anything?" "Ah," Jesus replied, his eyes radiant with compassion, Your voice is more than sufficient for one heart, perhaps even for many. When you touch just one life with love, hope is sparked a ripple effect, unseen yet powerful. The miracles reach beyond moments. They weave through time. Those words lingered in the air, reaching into the depths of their spirits, awakening the buried desires to act beyond self. But the questions remained questions that seemed to stretch beyond their immediate situation. How would they, with their limited means, be called to impact their communities? What other voices might join in this grand chorus of change? As night enveloped the sky, stars began to glint like diamonds set against a vast canvas of darkness. The gathering slowly swelled with a new, energy, unarticulated understanding that they were heralds of something larger than themselves. Peter stood transfixed, moving closer to the edge of the shoreline, where the waves continuously kissed the land. Each rise and fall felt like a heartbeat, a reminder of the ongoing journey ahead. So this moment must transcend. It must echo further than we can imagine. His heart trembled. With anticipation, balancing on the edge of what was known and what was yet to be uncovered. But how do we truly embody this miracle in our ordinary lives? How do we ensure that memory doesn't fade away like the night into dawn? And as the moon's luminous gaze shone down upon him, Peter felt a profound stirring within, a connection to the divine whispering that the journey was only just beginning, laden with hope, yet shrouded in mystery. What truths still lay dormant within the heart of this experience, waiting to reveal themselves in the days to come? As the night wrapped its blanket around the gathering, the whispers of hope mingled with the gentle lapping of waves. Each soul seemed to lean closer, drawn into the depths of what Jesus had ignited within them. The quieted chaos of the earlier hours gave way to an atmosphere pulsing with the promise of revelation, where hearts felt lighter and minds opened like petals to the dawn. In that sacred space, Mary, the mother of Jesus, emerged from the shadows, her presence immediately calming the fervor of those around. With a motherly grace, she approached her son, the soft glow of the moon casting her features in a delicate light. The crowd fell silent, sensing the weight of an unspoken bond between them. "Jesus," she said, her voice a soothing cadence breaking the stillness. "In your words, I hear the echo of our ancestors. The wisdom of Elijah, the heart of David is all entwined within this moment. What is ours to learn as we appreciate the gift of community?" Jesus smiled, an expression of fondness mixed with a reflective seriousness. "Mother, this feast stretches beyond mere bread. It is a tapestry of memory and longing, stitched from the desires of many hearts. We find our strength not only in gathering, but in how we carry one another's burdens into the world." The crowd looked at one another, pondering the breadth of his insight. A murmur arose, as thoughts turned to the implications of this electrifying truth. Peter broke through, emboldened by the presence of Mary and the shared energy of the company. So our journey into the world is also an invitation for others to take part. But how do we illuminate the paths of those still wandering in darkness? By first seeking the light within yourselves, Jesus replied, "For in the silence, you may discover that you are not alone. Each life is a candle, and the flame grows brighter when shared. Look to one another, share stories, and ignite compassion where despair attempts to diminish hope. Each act, no matter how small, carries within it the power to awaken the soul of another." As the wind shifted, carrying the scent of salt and promise, a man stepped forward, visibly distressed. "Rabbi," he pleaded, "I have followed you today, feeling the gravity of my own sorrows. If my heart is heavy, how can I be a light to others?" Jesus knelt, placing a caring hand on the man's shoulders. "Your weight does not disqualify you from sharing hope. It deepens your understanding of the human condition. When you connect with the pain of others, you speak a language that transcends words. Allow your grief to guide you, for in vulnerability, transformation begins." The man nodded, the wisdom sifting through his doubts like light through a veil. Around him, the crowd shifted, feeling the truth of the words to their core. A shared heartbeat grew louder in acknowledgement of the collective struggles each bore. James then spoke, "What if we fail to recognize the strength within our grasp? What if our efforts feel insignificant in the face of overwhelming need? Our lives reflect shadows," Mary interjected softly, Yet it is in those shadows that light is defined. Engage with those dark places within yourself and attend to the shadows of your neighbors. For in this, you breed resilience, twin flames flickering together in the night, illuminating possibility where once despair dwelled, that a ripple of understanding cascaded through the crowd, igniting sparks of insight in otherwise hidden hearts. The fleeting moment felt timeless, shrouded in layers of meaning that intertwined their spiritual well-being with a call to action. Peter stood, overwhelmed yet steadfast, a realization dawning with clarity. So, we must embrace our struggles together because therein dwells the essence of community. Yet, what happens when the world turns and we find ourselves alone again? How do we carry this into our own lives beyond this gathering? The question hung heavy in the air, echoing back to the gentle waves, their secrets revealed yet still shrouded in the depths of the sea. As the night deepened, the stars twinkled like eyes of divinity witnessing their journey, prompting a reflection not yet answered. What further truths and divine mysteries awaited them in their individual paths, and how would the journey touch the lives that they had yet to meet? As the flicker of stars brightened the still evening sky, each person felt a swell of anticipation. The question posed by Peter hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting their hearts to the sacred call of their gathering. It seemed as though the earth itself held its breath, waiting for the echo of wisdom to ripple through their midst. Jesus, with an inquisitive gaze, looked upon the crowd that had gathered, a blend of fishermen, tax collectors, and steadfast believers. Our community will extend beyond these shores, he began. But first, let us dwell within the sacred moment gifted to us. Each time we share, whether in joy or in sorrow, we partake in the miracle of connection. He gestured toward a nearby basket, remnants of the miraculous feast still clinging to the sides. Consider that the simple loaves and fishes held by your hands were not mere nourishment. They became more than their physicality the moment they were shared. Just as they multiplied in our hands, so too can our experiences grow when we allow them to be known among each other. Mary nodded, her heart swelling with pride and compassion for her son. She added, the physical acts of sharing, of taking a meal together, transcend the material. They awaken the understanding that our pains and joys are threads woven into the larger fabric of life. With each shared meal, we are reminded that we are not solitary stars, but part of a vast constellation. The crowd, caught in the rhythm of her words, began to resonate with a deeper understanding. They exchanged glances, and the weight of their individual burdens felt lighter in this moment of communion. Yet, a flicker of doubt rose within Nathan, a young fisherman who had recently joined their gathering. But what if our hearts grow weary? What if sharing becomes too heavy, and the shadows once again threaten to engulf us? Jesus approached Nathan, kneeling alongside him. Ah, dear friend, even in weariness lies a sacred invitation. The shadows are a part of the journey, revealing to us the fragility of our existence. When darkness grips you, do not shy away from bringing it into the light. Vulnerability is a bridge connecting us to divine strength. To feel is to acknowledge your humanity. But what if our vulnerability isolates us instead? Nathan pressed, urgency seeping through his voice. With a patient heart, Jesus replied, nurture your wound not in silence, but in the embrace of community. In sharing your struggles, you invite others to respond with their own with compassion, even love. Transformation can take root when we open our hearts to both joy and sorrow. As they spoke, the waves gently lapped at the shore, as if echoing the rhythm of their dialogue. Silently, a reflection crept into each mind, nudging an unknowing realization that their fears and joys were intricately intertwined, awaiting recognition. Just then, the man who had first approached Jesus, now emboldened by his earlier encounter, spoke again, his voice steadier. I understand now that we are not just vessels of our grief, but also conduits for healing. Yes, Jesus affirmed. Each miracle begins with a seed of struggle, nourished by love and connection. Do not shy from the mysteries hidden within your journeys. Embrace them. With each shared story, a deeper understanding unfolds, allowing the light to pierce the darkness. The crowd fell into contemplative silence, the sound of waves melding with the rhythm of their hearts. As the night deepened, Whispers of revelations drifted through the air, yet the weight of unanswered questions still lingered. Could sharing their burdens truly manifest a light strong enough to brighten the dark corners of their souls? And could their collective journey blend individual struggles into something greater than themselves, creating a community resilient enough to face the storms that lay ahead? As the night wore on and the flickers of stars began to twinkle more vividly against the inky backdrop of the sky, Jesus led the gathering down to the water's edge. The gentle lapping of the waves created a soothing rhythm that seemed to cradle their thoughts, encouraging them to reflect on the words spoken moments before. It was in this serene moment that a question lingered, hovering in the air as palpable as the salt-kissed breeze. What lay beneath the miraculous abundance they had experienced? Jesus gathered them close, eyes shining with a wisdom that transcended understanding. Tonight, he said softly, let us delve deeper into what sustains us beyond the physical act of sharing. For you see, the secret behind the feast we partook in is not just confined to bread and fish, but extends into the boundless nature of giving and receiving in its most radical forms. The crowd shifted, intrigued as layers of their earlier conversations began to unfurl like flowers under the dawn. Mary, immersed in deep thought, pondered how the simplicity of their shared meal could hold such profound mysteries. How do we, mere mortals, grasp that which seems infinite? She asked. Jesus smiled gently, as if aware of the depth of her inquiry. The infinite springs forth from the finite. Remember, the loaves and fishes were gathered and offered with humble hearts. In that act of surrender, they transformed and multiplied. The essence of sharing is the key. When you give of yourselves your time, your compassion, and your understanding, you create a resonance that echoes through the cosmos. The hush fell over the gathered witnesses as they hung onto his words, but Nathan's brow furrowed. This is beautiful, but how do we cultivate that spirit of generosity, especially when we feel empty or alone? He reflected on the weightiness that had threatened his heart earlier, a shadow lingering still at the edges of his mind. Jesus, understanding the struggle tethered to Nathan's question, answered, look not solely to your own emptiness, but consider the abundance already present around you. Each act of kindness, however small, sends ripples that can touch a multitude. When you give, even from a place of brokenness, you inspire others to do the same. The community becomes a vessel of divine love, transforming individual struggles into a symphony of hope. The serenity of the shore met the reverberations of the hearts before him. A few of the fishermen, inspired, began to share candidly about their burdens, allowing vulnerability to soften their walls. The more they spoke, the more their hearts began to resonate with empathy and camaraderie. This newfound understanding illuminated the truth that within their narratives lay threads of compassion, interwoven like the fishing nets they cast into the sea. Suddenly, a voice broke through the soft rhythm of the waves, a newcomer from the crowd, a woman whose pair of eyes glimmered with troubled hope. What if the things we bring to the light do not heal, but deepen our wounds? How do we find solace in our shared grief when the weight of the world feels unbearable? Jesus nodded, acknowledging the rawness of her fear. In those shared breaths where pain meets love, remember that healing is not always instant. It is a journey. The very act of sharing your struggle creates a sacred space. Even in despair, there lies an unquenchable flame waiting to ignite hope. You are not alone in your carrying, for within this community is a wellspring of strength that can help bear the burdens together. As they stood there, wrapped in the embrace of their shared stories, a realization dawned that the feast was not merely a miraculous event. It was an invitation to cultivate a spirit of connection, to explore a universe teeming with potential beyond the physical realm. And with this epiphany came another profound question, casting its own light upon their gathering. Could the journey of sharing burdens truly become the very catalyst that illuminates their paths amid the encroaching shadows? As the night deepened, the air thick with contemplation and the soft whispers of the waves, the crowd remained gathered, each one wrestling silently with the power of their shared experience. The moon hung low, casting a silver glow upon the water, and it invoked a certain reverence as they watched the shimmering surface dance like a tapestry woven by unseen hands. Jesus paused, absorbing the gazes of the people around him. There was something sacred in this moment, a convergence of spirits seeking understanding. It was then that he beckoned them closer, as he often did to reveal deeper truths. Listen closely, for what I share tonight is not just for your ears, but for your hearts. He began to recount a story of old, the tale of a great prophet who had wandered through the desert, led by a deep yearning for connection with the divine. This prophet, too, faced hunger and thirst. Yet, he was nourished not just by bread but by the very words that flowed from the mouth of God. In his isolation, he learned the power of communion both with the heavens above and the earthly hearts around him. The listeners leaned in, feeling the resonance of his words thrumming in their chests. They could picture the prophet, a figure draped in dust and wandering shadows, whose hunger transcended mere sustenance. Each story held echoes of their own lives, struggles, and the unmistakable yearning for meaning in a world that could often seem unforgiving. Mary, her brow furrowed in contemplation, voiced what was on many minds. But how do we find that same source of nourishment in our day-to-day lives? How do we connect our mundane existence with the divine promise? Jesus offered a knowing smile, a glimmer of light in his eyes. The sacred can be found in the most ordinary of encounters. You see, the miracle of the loaves and fishes did not end with the meal. It began there. Each moment of grace, each act of kindness, is a reminder that the divine is woven into the very fabric of our lives. You must seek it in the faces of one another, and in the breath of this very moment. As he spoke, Nathan's gaze drifted thoughtfully across the gentle waves, reflecting the restlessness of the heart he carried within. But what if we don't feel worthy of that grace? How do we embrace a gift that feels so distant? Our hearts ache for it, yet they remain heavy with our own perceptions. Jesus paused again, letting Nathan's words marinate in the cool night air. Ah, my friend, therein lies the secret. It is often our perceived unworthiness that keeps us from stepping into the light of love. The feast we shared was birthed from not just what was provided, but from the openness to receive. When you stand in truth, embracing both your flaws and your strengths, you awaken to the reality that all are worthy in the eyes of the Father. The crowd remained quiet, taking in the richness of those powerful words. The sea continued its soft rhythm as thoughts churned and hearts stirred. Then the woman who had spoken of sorrow earlier took a hesitant step forward, her voice trembling but resolute. But do we not risk further heartbreak in the pursuit of connection? Those who welcome love are often the ones who suffer loss the deepest. Jesus looked deep into her eyes, allowing the weight of her question to settle like the hush of a shadow. True, the heart that dares to love is often the heart that may ache. Yet, consider this. Each moment of connection, each gesture of kindness courageously offered, is a thread that binds us together in a tapestry that sings of life. Vulnerability is not a weakness, but a doorway to a more profound understanding of one another. The whispers of acknowledgement spread through the gathering, lighting small flickers of hope in their hearts. It dawned on them that perhaps the act of letting go of fear, of grief, and the desire to control the unfolding story might be the very act that opens their souls to boundless love. Still, as profound as these moments felt, another lingering question loomed overhead, casting its shadow. As they contemplated the tapestry of their shared lives, each woven with threads of joy and sorrow, they pondered together. Could it be that in embracing the uncertainty of love and vulnerability, they would navigate the wilderness of their struggles and uncover mysteries unfathomable to their understanding? As the moon rose higher, illuminating the gathering with an ethereal glow, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken questions. The gentle lapping of the waves seemed to urge them onward, urging more truths to emerge. Jesus, sensing the weight of their thoughts, continued to weave through their myriad doubts, his voice a steady beacon amidst the stormy seas of their minds. Each of you are a note in a grand symphony, he said, drawing their focus back to the essence of community and the connection of their souls. Within this gathering lies the potential for each heart to resonate with the other. The act of sharing food that day was not simply a miracle of sustenance. It was a glimpse into a greater mystery, the truth that we all have parts to play in God's melody. A murmur of curiosity rippled through the crowd. What could it mean that they were notes in a symphony? Was there truly a divine composition to their lives? echoing beyond their understanding. One old man, with weathered skin and wise eyes reflecting the joys and sorrows of a lifetime, cleared his throat, drawing their attention. But what of those who surround us who cannot hear the music? How do we encourage them to find their place in that symphony? Jesus looked deeply at the man, and a soft smile crept onto his lips. It begins with each individual choosing to become a source of harmony. Look around you. Love is an invitation, not an obligation. When one heart reaches out to another, it fosters an environment where all can feel welcomed. It is in the act of offering love that we help the disheartened hear the melody of grace. The crowd fell silent, grappling with the enormity of their situation. They were not mere spectators. They were active participants in the unfolding story. But the question lingered. If they were truly meant to be vehicles of love, how could they manage their own trials while extending hands to others? Amidst the soft whispers of uncertainty, a young girl, perhaps 10 years old, spoke up with unexpected clarity. But what if our own hearts are hurting so much that we can hardly bear our own burdens? How can we help others while feeling so lost ourselves? Jesus knelt before her, meeting her gaze with warmth. In your vulnerability lies an exquisite strength, my dear. It is true that there are times when our burdens feel insurmountable, yet those moments can become powerful bridges to others. When you share your own struggles, you illuminate paths for others to walk alongside you. You will find that in these moments of shared humanity, healing begins not just for the one who suffers, but for all involved. The girl pondered his words, her innocent eyes reflecting the flickering light of understanding. In sharing, they could find solace even in their heartaches. That realization began to weave through the crowd, bringing a collective sigh of recognition. Yet, a deeper question began to settle heavily on their hearts. Did this mean they must lay bare their souls to one another? Would exposing their frailty risk further wounds? Silence enveloped the gathering once again, a blanket of contemplation draping themselves in its warmth. As the waves continued to whisper their secrets, they remained collectively aware of another profound truth looming ahead. What depth of vulnerability would they have to dive into to nurture the connections they yearned for? And in that leap into uncertainty, could they unearth the strength to embrace the gifts both of love and loss that awaited them on the shores of their shared journey? As the night deepened, Jesus stood gazing out at the brimming waters of the Sea of Galilee, reflecting on the tender hearts gathered before him. The atmosphere crackled with a sense of expectation, as if the very air hummed with the unspoken desire for authentic connection and understanding. Tonight, you have witnessed a miracle, he began, drawing the collective gaze of the crowd with a quiet authority. But it is not merely the feeding of your bodies I seek to illuminate. Rather, it is the nourishment of your souls. The murmur of curiosity rose like ripples on the surface of the water, each person leaning in, eager for the wisdom that would breach the shores of their understanding. Mary's eyes shone with pride for her son, while Peter's heart thrummed with anticipation. Each loaf and each fish shared, Jesus continued, are symbols of the love that binds us. Just as I took the offerings of the boy and multiplied them, so too can the love within each of your hearts multiply when shared abundantly. The miracle is not confined to this moment. It lives within you. In every act of kindness, each embrace, each shared story of sorrow or joy, you embody the divine love that flows through all creation. A profound stillness hung in the air, allowing the weight of his words to settle. The crowd's hearts began to resonate with understanding, acknowledging the transformative power of connection. Yet still, doubts clung like shadows at the edge of their awareness. Unsure how to bridge the gap between faith and lived experience, that a voice piped up from the rear of the throng. A weary fisherman named Eli, whose face bore lines etched deep by worry and toil. But what if we fail, Lord? What if our love is not enough to bridge the gap of despair we see all around us? Jesus turned, his eyes filled with compassion, and reached out toward Eli. Ah, dear Eli, love is not measured by its perfection, but by its willingness to be offered. Each attempt, no matter how small, creates waves rippling through lives you may never see. It is in the very act of reaching out that you plant seeds of hope. Not every seed will take root immediately, and some may face harsh conditions, but all can blossom into the unexpected. A chorus of thoughtful murmurs followed, igniting a flicker of hope within the hearts that had begun to dim. Then a quiet young girl, full of wonder yet fear, raised her hand timidly. "What if I have nothing to share, Lord? No love, no light, just my sadness." Jesus smiled gently, kneeling to meet her eyes. Even the simplest breath of honesty is enough to begin. Share your burden, dear one, and you may find that in your vulnerability, others will be inspired to share theirs. You may discover that in those darkest corners resides the light of connection, weaving its way through the hearts of your family here. You are never alone. An audible gasp of understanding swept across the crowd, wisdom igniting in their hearts, creating a storm of compassion that rippled through each soul. As they listened, their fears transformed into resolve. The shadows grew fainter, washed away by the brightening dawn of shared experience. Then, a figure stepped forward, the woman whose voice had trembled with sorrow earlier in the night. Surrendering her hesitance, she spoke clearly. If we genuinely connect, fear becomes a shared burden rather than a solitary weight. But what if we open ourselves and the world still feels heavy? How do we keep love flowing in a world that sometimes seems so broken? Jesus' expression turned serious, yet filled with warmth. To embrace love in the face of brokenness is to bear witness to the very fabric of existence. Remember, solace does not mean devoid of challenge. We journey together through joy and sorrow, threading our lives into one tapestry. There will undoubtedly be moments when love feels scarce, but remember, each act that speaks love into the world attracts more of its essence. It is this persistence in love, even when it seems most difficult, that will turn the tide. The crowd grew silent, the soft lapping of the waves against the shore accompanying the pulse of newfound understanding. The pieces of their collective hearts began lifting as they contemplated the beauty of loving boldly in the wake of struggle. As the moon climbed higher into the sky, casting a silver luminescence over the gathering, Jesus called them back to the heart of the miracle that had unfolded. This feast was never just about the bread and fish. It is a metaphor for the abundant life you can create together. By nurturing each other, the brokenhearted, the lost, and the hungry, we expand our heavenly banquet. That he paused, allowing his words to sink deep, and with confidence, pushed forward. When you break bread in fellowship, you multiply joy not only in your hearts but through the lives you touch. You were chosen to be a blessing to one another. Love is resilience. Love finds strength together. Are you willing, then, to share not just your loaves but the very essence of your soul? A stirring rippled through the crowd, awakening the sacred truth that had been buried beneath layers of doubt. The disciples looked amongst themselves, their resolve building within each one as understanding flickered in their eyes. Peter felt a fire ignite within him, urging him to respond. "Yes, we will share what is within us, Lord. We will embrace our struggles, carry our burdens together, and respond with compassion." A wave of voices rose, affirmation cascading through the air as the crowd echoed his sentiment, declaring their commitment to one another. The miracle was transforming, a revelation reborn within each gathering soul, reaching beyond the bounds of mere sustenance. In that sacred moment, Jesus stepped back and beheld the magnificent tapestry woven before him, hearts interlaced with threads of understanding and love. Remember, you are the bearers of light in the midst of uncertainty. Go forth and love unabashedly. Your hearts are fullness. It is in giving your hearts that you will find purpose everlasting. With eyes glistening under the radiant moonlight, the multitude felt a shift beyond mere words. It pulsed through the man awakening, a calling that reverberated deeper than any prior miracle. They were a community set into motion, destined to illuminate paths where shadows once lingered, to heal wounds where hurts resided, and to sow seeds of love that would echo far beyond their present moment. As the stars twinkled brightly, marking a tapestry of promises above, Jesus stood in silence, knowing that the true miracle was unfolding not solely in the multiplication of loaves and fishes, but in the revelation that each heart enriched through connection would forever change the lives of those around them. The dawn of a new understanding broke upon them like the promise of a new day. In that revelatory moment, each soul realized that the true feast was just beginning, a banquet of love, hope, and purpose carried into every dawn that would follow. And in that realization lived the powerful testament that faith, when shared, could illuminate the depth of human experience, forever bridging the divide between hearts hungry for connection and a world yearning for compassion.